I was coming down off the mountain yesterday and thinking about the two best messages I ever preached, or the best responses, were at world conferences in Canada. And there's something about that because there's a dynamic there. It's just so exciting, and
Yeah.
there's so many leaders there and that kind of stuff. And but what's fascinating is both of those. What made them a lot of fun was that at the end there was kind of like, well, the first one there was this like huge standing ovation, like everybody just got up, and I walked off the stage like, and then, and then the next one was the one in Lethbridge at the Victory Church there, and it was the same thing, like great applause and stuff like that. And but what I know and have to remember is that that applause wasn't spontaneous. It was our missionaries from
Right.
Thailand
Who were like, woohoo!
rooting for their guy.
Yeah.
So don't think you're so smart, Al. You know,
Right.
if it wasn't for this team we have, there would have been no applause. But you can instigate something like that and you can get it started. And so, and I think about that, how the humility that we need to walk in comes with an awareness of what's really going on.
Right.
Like, you're not such a hot shot,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
And don't get so high-headed about it.
Yeah. And it happens, it's not something, I mean, it's something every one of us is guarding against, but sometimes it begins to manifest in little things. And because it's not such a huge, obvious thing, we kind of
Right.
lap it up and take it in, and we don't even really pay attention to it. But pretty soon it actually changes our expectation. We expect certain things from people who are following us, people that are leading us, and you almost have like a complex of, I'm here to be served, and you forget the whole thing about, actually, I'm here
Right.
to serve you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so true.
Yeah. So, the main passage in Philippians chapter 2, which kind of spurred this, was the attitude that Jesus had, right? And it says, though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. And then, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died on the cross. But I love the part here. It says that he gave up his divine privileges. And the reality is, as leaders, you end up with certain privileges.
Right.
Right? You have people that are looking after you, people that look up to you, people that listen to you, people that really admire you. And after a while, if you're not careful, you can forget that you actually need to learn how to give up those privileges and
Yeah.
operate in a level of humility where it's great that you see me as something special, but that's not actually what I'm here
Right.
for,
Right. Yeah.
And I just worry about that a little bit, in the sense that because we have such amazing people everywhere.
Yes. Yeah, we really do. Yeah,
And they just
absolutely.
love us so well that it's easy to begin to believe that press
Yeah,
about ourselves,
yeah, right.
and forget.
Yeah, the praise press.
Yeah.
Rather than what does God really see. And then Paul goes on in that passage and he says you need to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling.
Yeah.
And that's he's using that example of Jesus, not thinking it a thing to be selfishly grasped, but Jesus laid down. In fact, basically what it was is Jesus did not insist on his right to be God.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? He gave that up, and that's what Paul is saying to us. He says you're going to work it out with fear and trembling. In other words, you're going to have to give up your rights, recognize what they are, and then give them up, so that you are actually working out your salvation. It's a very important key. I think that you can lose so much by getting proud. I mean, you can lose everything. We've seen people lose ministries, lose visions, lose everything they built, just by allowing that kind of, exalting to come in. And it's a tough thing. You've got to manage it.
Yeah. So I think just having a level of self-awareness and paying attention. So some of the signs that this is kind of creeping into our lives is when we are the person that has to do the most talking in the room.
Oh boy, yeah.
And less listening, right? When we're the person that feels that we have the right answer and everybody else needs to follow, when there's not that humility, and even just sometimes you go with somebody else's idea, not because it's the best one, but because it's not yours. Like sometimes that needs to happen. People need to see that, right?
That's right.
Another sign that that's beginning to happen, that you always want around you because they're the ones that make you feel the best, That's one of the things we have to guard against too, because a lot of times whenever we run into conflict and tension in relationship, we like to turn that into more like I can't work this with this person, or there's an issue here or whatever, and so we tend to push those people away. But we actually have to be comfortable with having pushback
Right.
in our
Right.
lives.
Yeah.
You want people in your life that are going to push back on you and say no to certain things, or I disagree with certain things. And if you find that you're someone who tends to eliminate those people from your circle of influence, then I think there's an issue there.
Yeah.
When you become the person, another symptom or sign of that is when you become the person that stops serving in the little ways. One of the things that bothers me sometimes, especially when you see like guest ministers come or whatever, and they're little things, and maybe there's reasons behind this, but when the minister shows up and he comes in at the last minute just in time to preach, and then he leaves right at the end, there's no like getting to know people beforehand, there's no participating in worship, there's no or like you're the minister, so you sit on the front row, and while everybody else is worshiping and lifting up their hands, you're just sitting there because you don't have to somehow engage, or like just those little things where you feel entitled to behave in a certain way that you would not allow other people to behave in, right? You feel entitled to show up to work late. You feel entitled to not be ready for certain things because you're the leader, and people just have to make room for that kind of thing. So those, for me, I don't know if there's any other ones that stick out to you, but tend to be the things that if I see them cropping up in my life, it's like, okay, there is a level of pride here that needs to be dealt with. And because pride is the root of every other evil that comes out of your life, it's not something that you want to mess with at all.
And I think the talking thing for leaders, for ministry leaders particularly, that more talking than listening is a huge one. And is it Dr. Henry Cloud? He talks about how we influence more by listening than we do by talking.
That is so good.
Yeah,
and so hard to believe
true.
when you're
so hard to believe
when you're the person that has all the ideas.
That's right, because I got stuff to say. But speaking of the little, privileges that kind of set us apart, one thing that we've always done as we travel around Canada preaching in churches, which we do a lot of, is intentionally get there early enough, always, to connect with the pre-service prayer group rather than the pastor in the office, right? Or whatever. And every church is different. They're so different. And some of those prayer groups are egregious. No, they're not fun, but some of them are amazing.
Yeah.
And I really want to connect with the people that we're going to minister to and minister with, and I'm believing that those people that are in the prayer group, they're the ones that are setting the stage, the spiritual atmosphere.
Right.
It's not me sitting on the front row.
Yeah, that's right. It's
true. So I found it a bit puzzling sometimes. It'd be, how come you're in here? Like this is just the prayer. No, that's where I want to be. And then, to be able to spend time and say hi to people and that kind of stuff, it's really, I mean, when I go to Searcha Church every Sunday, I make the entire round, just because it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
People want to, and especially as a leader, people get really encouraged when you come and say hi. And a lot of them are too shy to say hi to you.
That's true, yeah.
But there's some humility things here that I've really noticed. And humility, like to define it really, to clarify it, the first thing I always say is that it's to believe whatever God says about you is true.
Yeah.
And so it's not humility to beat yourself up.
Yeah.
But it is a humility to submit yourself to what God says about you as being true. You are the righteousness of God in Christ, that you're filled with wisdom, you're filled with grace, all those kind of things. And the second thing is that humility is to see things clearly, right? If a leader doesn't see the circumstances and the what would you say, the culture and all this kind of, doesn't see it clearly, it's because there's a lack of humility there. Humility allows us to see it. And so there can be, there's some people that are all you get out of them is drama or insecurity or arrogance or narcissism, right? But really, a humble leader sees the actual clarity of what's going on around them. The next one is obedience to the word. In Philippians chapter 2, I think it's verse 12, where he says that I'm not there to watch you, right?
Yeah.
But you need to obey, be obedient,
Yeah.
whether I'm watching or not.
That's
That's what the
right.
Apostle Paul said.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge thing. Are we obedient to the word when nobody's watching?
Mm-hmm.
That's a point of humility. And then realizing or living in the realization that in God is where all of our security, our confidence, and our faith, all of that comes from. That it's in God. In God is where that anointing comes from. It's not something that you polished yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of God, there's zero
Yeah.
security.
That's right.
And then the next one is valuing the life and the interests of others more than your own. And that's what Paul said right there too, right? In Philippians 2, 3, and 4. He says you need to pay more attention, to be more interested in the issues or in the things of others, the interests of others, than you are in your own self. And that really shows up in your talking. If all I'm talking about is me,
Yeah.
you're not interested in the other guy, right? So the humility is something that we really need to get a clear picture of, and then check ourselves. There's nobody outside that's going to keep us humble, right?
It's very rare to find that person. Maybe if you're
Yeah.
married,
Maybe,
you have that person in your life.
maybe it helps being married.
Young children are also very honest.
Yeah, that's true, but we tend not to listen to them. No.
Yeah, we're like, shut up, go to your room.
So that the awareness really is what it comes down to, self-awareness. And again, if I could develop a pill for it, it would be really, really amazing.
And I think one of the things that we need to do is actually take a look at how we actually express honor, because a lot of times, the passage in the Bible that says you don't give deferential treatment to, the rich guy comes in, you put him in the front row, and the poor guy, you're like kicking him out the back. We do that, but in little ways, So we tend to honor our leaders by giving them special favors. They get, a special procession. They get a this and that and the other, which is not wrong. But true honor is not in making sure that you've got an entourage of people that are carrying your Bible. And true honor is listening and being obedient to what God is speaking through your leaders. True honor is submission. So I think sometimes we want to honor externally by showing our honor by, you get the great seat, you get the, whatever it is ready for you, you get the foot massage when you show up and preach or whatever it is. But I think sometimes we need to reevaluate that, because we want everybody to see that you're not more special than I am because you're the leader. You're not more special than I am because you're the speaker or you're the worship leader. All of us have the exact same place of honor because Jesus honors us as his children, and there's no deferential treatment, So I love the idea that we want to bless people, but I think sometimes in doing that, we almost paint a picture of this person is special, more special than the rest of us because of the gift and the, So maybe that's something we need to think about individually, like how do I honor my leader in a way that is powerful in the spirit realm versus is visible in the natural realm, right? How do we honor in a way that doesn't make him seem untouchable to the people that he's ministering to or she's ministering to? And, just give ourselves a healthy dose of like, we're all the same.
Right. And this is something that we're passing down to our next generation, whether we really realize it or not.
Yeah.
If we set ourselves up at this is the the epitome of ministry, then that's their goal, becomes their goal. But I got to say that that our leaders, particularly our senior leaders across Asia, are very humble,
They are.
very sweet people, and I don't see a whole lot of that, self-exalting, and that has to be intentional because we live in a Christianity where there is a lot of self-exalting. In fact, I know that a lot of people have adopted themselves into the Victory Asia family because of that very thing. They've come from a place where there was so much pride and self-exalting and that kind of thing, and they didn't like it, and have come in humbled and and so I really appreciate all you guys, the way you walk in humility, because that's what's going to happen in our next generations. What we display is going to be imparted to them, and that's what's going to keep them on track is this humility to believe God that he's our everything, and without us, what does the Bible uses things like the flower on the grass, things like that, the frailty of man. So So yeah, walk humbly with our God. That's the admonition.